The stars had always called to humanity. For thousands of years, people had looked up at the night sky and wondered what was out there. They had dreamed of distant worlds and alien civilizations. They had built rockets and space stations and colonies on Mars. And finally, in the year 2847, they had built ships that could travel between the stars. Commander Daniel Harper stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance and looked out at the endless darkness of space. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had served in the space fleet for 30 years. He had seen things that most humans could never imagine. But nothing had prepared him for what he was seeing now. 3 massive alien warships hung in space before him. Each one was bigger than anything humanity had ever built. Their hulls were smooth and black, covered with strange patterns that glowed with blue light. Weapons bristled from every surface. These ships could destroy cities. These ships could crack planets open like eggs. And they were pointing all those weapons at the Defiance. Lieutenant Lisa Grant sat at the communications console. She was young, barely 30 years old, with short brown hair and sharp eyes. Her fingers moved across the controls as she tried to make sense of the alien transmissions. "Commander," she said, "they want to talk to us." Daniel nodded slowly. Humanity had known for decades that they were not alone in the universe. They had found ancient ruins on distant moons. They had detected radio signals from faraway stars. But this was the first time they had actually met another intelligent species face to face. "Put them through," Daniel said. The main screen flickered and changed. An alien face appeared. It was not human. The creature had scales instead of skin, scales that shifted colors like oil on water. Its eyes were large and yellow, with no visible pupils. When it spoke, the words were strange and harsh, but the ship's computer translated them into English. "I am Admiral Vex Thar of the Zorani Empire," the alien said. "You are in Confederation space. Identify yourselves." Daniel stepped forward. He kept his voice calm and steady. "I am Commander Daniel Harper, of the United Earth Fleet. We come in peace. We are explorers, not invaders." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. Its scales turned a pale yellow color. "Peace. Yes. All primitive species say this when they first crawl out of their home systems. Tell me, Commander, what weapons does your little ship carry?" Daniel did not like this question. But he had been ordered to cooperate with any aliens they encountered. The politicians back on Earth wanted peace at any cost. They did not understand that sometimes peace was not possible. "We have plasma cannons," Daniel said. "Missile launchers, railguns, standard defensive weapons." Admiral Vexthar made that laughing sound again. "Plasma cannons. How charming. Our plasma weapons are 300 years more advanced than yours. Your missiles would not even scratch our shields. You are children, Commander. Dangerous children, perhaps, but children nonetheless." The transmission ended. But the alien ships did not leave. Instead, a shuttle detached from the largest warship and flew toward the Defiance. "They want to come aboard," Lisa said. "They want to inspect our weapons." Daniel felt his hands tighten into fists. This was wrong. This was an insult. But what choice did he have? Those alien ships could destroy the Defiance in seconds. They could wipe out every human ship in the fleet without breaking a sweat. "Let them come," Daniel said quietly. 30 minutes later, Admiral Vexthar walked through the corridors of the Defiance. He moved with a strange grace, his long legs bending in ways that human legs could not. 2 guards followed behind him, carrying weapons that Daniel did not recognize. Captain Nathan Price led the tour. He was the ship's weapons officer, a serious man with a thick beard and calloused hands. He showed the aliens everything they asked to see: the plasma cannons, the missile bays, the railgun emplacements. The aliens were not impressed. "Primitive," Admiral Vexthar said over and over. "Crude, inefficient. Did your species truly think you could survive in this galaxy with such toys?" Nathan kept his face blank. He had been a soldier for 20 years. He knew how to hide his feelings. But inside, he was burning with anger. These aliens looked at humanity like they were insects, like they were nothing. The tour continued. And then they reached Cargo Bay 7. Admiral Vex Thar stopped at the door. His scales shifted to a strange purple color. "My sensors detect something unusual in this room," he said. "Something that does not match your other weapons." "Show me." Daniel had been following the group at a distance. Now he stepped forward. "That cargo bay contains a historical artifact," he said. "It is not a functional weapon. It is simply a piece of our history." The alien's yellow eyes narrowed. "Show me," he repeated. Daniel had no choice. He opened the door. The cargo bay was large and dimly lit. In the center of the room sat a massive machine. It was made of iron and steel, crude metals bolted together with visible seams. Thick cables snaked across the floor. The whole thing looked ancient. It looked primitive. It looked like something from a museum. Admiral Vexthar walked around the machine slowly. His scales flickered through several colors before settling on bright orange. "What is this?" he asked. Nathan cleared his throat. "It is called the Mjolnir Cannon," he said. "It was built over 500 years ago, during a time when humans still fought wars against each other. It uses electromagnetic coils to accelerate a solid metal projectile to very high speeds." The alien stared at him. "A kinetic weapon? You brought a kinetic weapon into space?" "It is just a relic," Daniel said. "A reminder of our past." Admiral Vexthar began to laugh. It was not a pleasant sound. His scales turned bright orange and stayed there. The guards behind him made similar noises, their bodies shaking with amusement. "Kinetic weapons," the Admiral said. "Your species still uses kinetic weapons. Do you have any idea how primitive that is? Our shields can stop any projectile. Our energy dissipation fields can absorb any impact. Kinetic weapons were abandoned by civilized species thousands of years ago." He turned to face Daniel directly. His yellow eyes seemed to glow in the dim light. "You are even more primitive than I thought," Admiral Vexthar said. "You are children playing with rocks. You are no threat to anyone." "But hear me well, Commander. The Confederation does not tolerate violence. If you cause any trouble, if you threaten any member species, we will destroy you, all of you, every ship, every colony, every human in the galaxy. Do you understand?" Daniel met the alien's gaze. He did not look away. "I understand," he said. The aliens left. Their shuttle flew back to the warships, and the warships jumped away into faster-than-light travel. In moments, they were gone. Lisa found Daniel standing alone in Cargo Bay 7. He was looking at the Mjolnir cannon with a strange expression on his face. "Sir," she said, "are you all right?" Daniel did not answer for a long moment. Then he reached out and placed his hand on the cold metal of the ancient weapon. "They think we are primitive," he said quietly. "They think we are no threat. They have never seen what this weapon can do." Lisa frowned. "But sir," the Admiral said, "their shields can stop any projectile." Daniel turned to look at her. There was something in his eyes that she had never seen before. Something old and dangerous. "Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons," he said. "They were designed to dissipate heat and radiation. They were not designed for this." He patted the cannon gently, like a man greeting an old friend. "This weapon does not use heat," Daniel said. "It does not use radiation. It uses mass and speed. 400 tons of solid tungsten, moving at 20% of light speed. Do you know how much energy that is?" "Oh," Lisa shook her head. "Enough," Daniel said. "Enough to do something that no alien has ever seen." He walked past her toward the door. At the threshold, he stopped and looked back at the ancient weapon one more time. "They laughed at us," he said. "They called us children. They think they know everything about war." His voice dropped to a whisper. "They have no idea." 3 weeks passed after the first contact with the Zorani Empire. The Defiance continued its mission, exploring the outer edges of what the aliens called Confederation space. But now, they were never alone. Wherever they went, alien patrol ships followed. They watched everything the humans did. They recorded every transmission. They made sure that humanity knew its place. Daniel spent most of his time on the bridge, staring at the patrol ships on his sensors. He barely slept. He barely ate. His crew began to worry about him. Lisa brought him coffee one morning. She found him in his command chair, reading through old files on his personal tablet. "What are you looking at?" she asked. Daniel turned the tablet so she could see the screen. It showed technical drawings, old and faded. The Mjolnir cannon in all its detail. "My grandfather found this weapon," Daniel said. Back on Earth, in an old military bunker in the Nevada desert. The bunker had been sealed for almost 300 years. When he opened it, he found this cannon and all the documents that went with it. Lisa sat down next to him. "Why was it sealed?" "Because the people who built it were afraid of what it could do," Daniel said. "They tested it once, on a small asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. The asteroid was about 2 kilometers wide. After the test, the asteroid did not exist anymore. Just dust and small rocks. The scientists who built the cannon decided it was too dangerous. They sealed it away and hoped no one would ever find it." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. "And your grandfather found it. He was a treasure hunter," Daniel said with a small smile. "He spent his whole life looking for lost technology. When he found the cannon, he knew what it was. He knew how dangerous it was. But he also knew that someday, humanity might need it. So he kept it secret. He kept it in our family. My father inherited it. Then I inherited it. I brought it on the Defiance because I had a feeling we might need an advantage out here." Daniel closed the tablet. "I never expected to actually use it." A signal from the communications console interrupted them. Lisa hurried to her station and read the incoming message. Her face went pale. "Commander," she said. "We are being ordered to report to the Zorani homeworld. Admiral Vexthar wants to meet with us again. He says it is a matter of galactic security." Daniel stood up slowly. "Did he say why?" "No, sir. But the patrol ships are moving into escort formation. I do not think we have a choice." The trip to the Zorani homeworld took 4 days. When they arrived, Daniel understood why the Zorani were so confident about their power. The planet was surrounded by ships. Hundreds of ships. Thousands of ships. Warships and cargo ships and civilian vessels of every size and shape. Space stations orbited the planet like a ring of metal moons. The whole system was a fortress. No enemy could ever hope to attack this place. The Defiance was directed to dock at a military station near the planet's north pole. When Daniel stepped off his ship, he found Admiral Vexthar waiting for him. The alien's scales were a calm blue color. "Commander Harper," the Admiral said, "thank you for coming." "I did not think I had a choice," Daniel replied. The Admiral made a sound that might have been a chuckle. "You are learning. Come. The Council wants to see your primitive weapon." They took Daniel to a large meeting hall deep inside the station. Around a circular table sat representatives of a dozen different species. Some looked almost human. Others were strange beyond description. One was a floating cloud of gas that communicated through flashing lights. Another was a creature made entirely of crystal. At the head of the table sat an ancient Zorani. His scales had faded to a dull gray color, and his eyes were clouded with age. But when he spoke, his voice was strong and clear. "I am High Chancellor Zorketh," he said. "I lead the Galactic Confederation. Welcome to our council, human." Daniel bowed his head slightly. "Thank you, Chancellor. Admiral Vexthar has told us about your ship," the Chancellor continued. "He has told us about your weapons. And he has told us about your ancient kinetic device. The Mjolnir cannon. You call it." "Yes, Chancellor." "Bring it," the Chancellor ordered. 2 Zorani guards carried the Mjolnir cannon into the chamber. They set it down in the center of the room, where all the council members could see it. The weapon looked even more crude and primitive in this place of advanced technology. It was like putting a stone axe in a room full of laser rifles. The council members began to laugh. The crystal creature made a sound like breaking glass. The gas cloud flashed bright pink and yellow. Even the species that looked almost human pointed and whispered to each other. "This is what you fear?" one council member asked. "This pile of metal?" Admiral Vexthar stepped forward. His scales were orange with amusement. The humans actually believe this weapon could threaten us. They believe that a simple kinetic projectile could penetrate our shields. More laughter filled the room. High Chancellor Zorketh raised a hand for silence. He looked at Daniel with his clouded eyes. "Tell me, human, do you truly believe this weapon could harm a Confederation warship?" Daniel thought carefully before answering. He knew that what he said next could determine the fate of his entire species. "I believe that you have never seen anything like it," he said finally. "I believe that your shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not kinetic impacts. And I believe that you should not be so quick to mock something you do not understand." The laughter stopped. The council members stared at Daniel with new expressions. Some looked angry, some looked curious. A few looked worried. Admiral Vexthar's scales turned a dark red color. "You dare to lecture us? Your species has been in space for less than 200 years. We have been conquering the stars for 12,000 years. We have seen every weapon that primitive species can create. This," he pointed at the cannon, "is nothing." "Then you have nothing to worry about," Daniel said calmly. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. High Chancellor Zorketh leaned forward in his chair. "Admiral Vexthar has requested permission to destroy your weapon," the Chancellor said. "He believes it is too dangerous to let a primitive species keep such a device. He wants to melt it down and scatter the atoms across space." Daniel felt his heart freeze in his chest. If they destroyed the cannon, humanity would have nothing. They would be completely at the mercy of the Confederation. "However," the Chancellor continued, "I have decided against this course of action. The weapon is clearly primitive. It poses no real threat to our ships, and destroying it might create unnecessary tension between our species." Admiral Vexthar's scales flickered with anger. "Chancellor, I must protest." "Your protest is noted," the Chancellor said. "But my decision is final. The humans may keep their toy. It will do them no good against our technology." The Admiral fell silent, but his yellow eyes burned with hatred as he looked at Daniel. The meeting ended. Daniel was escorted back to his ship. The Mjolnir cannon was loaded back into Cargo Bay 7. As the Defiance prepared to depart, Lisa joined Daniel on the bridge. "That was dangerous," she said. "You nearly provoked them into destroying the cannon." "I know," Daniel said, "but I had to make them think it was worthless. If they believed it was a real threat, they would have taken it from us." "And is it a real threat?" Daniel watched the alien station grow smaller on the view screen. "Do you know the story of David and Goliath?" he asked. Lisa nodded. "The shepherd boy who killed the giant with a sling and a stone." "Everyone laughed at David," Daniel said. "The giant laughed. The soldiers laughed. They thought a boy with a rock could never defeat a warrior in armor. But David understood something they did not. He understood that size and strength are not everything. Sometimes, the simplest weapon is the deadliest." He turned away from the screen and walked toward his quarters. "The Confederation thinks we are children playing with rocks," he said. "Let them think that. Let them laugh. When the time comes, they will learn the truth." Lisa watched him go. She thought about the ancient weapon sitting in the cargo bay below. She thought about the massive warships surrounding the Zorani homeworld, and she wondered if David really could slay this particular giant, or if they were all going to die trying. 2 months passed after the meeting with the Confederation Council. Humanity continued to expand slowly through the galaxy. They built colonies on barren worlds that no other species wanted. They mined asteroids for metals and minerals. They tried their best to be good neighbors, but the Zorani never stopped watching them. Admiral Vexthar had been humiliated at the council meeting. A primitive human had spoken back to him in front of the entire leadership of the Confederation. His scales had burned with shame for weeks afterward. And shame, in a Zorani warrior, quickly turns to anger. The Admiral began looking for an excuse to punish the humans. He did not have to wait long. The Helix colony was a small mining outpost on the edge of human space. 3,000 people lived there, extracting rare minerals from an asteroid belt. It was not a military target. It was just a group of families trying to make a living in a harsh universe. On the morning of March 15th, Zorani warships appeared in the Helix system. Administrator Carol Webb was eating breakfast when the alarm sounded. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and rough hands. She had been running the colony for 5 years. She had never seen an alien warship before. "What do they want?" she asked her communications officer. The young man, barely 20 years old, listened to the incoming transmission. His face went white. "They say we are trespassing on Confederation territory. They say we have to leave immediately. All of us. Right now." Carol felt her stomach drop. "That is impossible. We have thousands of people here. We cannot evacuate in one day. It would take weeks to move everyone safely. They say we have 1 hour." Carol tried to negotiate. She begged. She pleaded. She explained that there were children on the colony, elderly people, sick people who could not be moved quickly. She asked for more time. She asked for mercy. The Zorani commander, a young officer eager to impress Admiral Vexthar, simply laughed. His scales were bright orange with contempt. 1 hour, he repeated. "After that, we will open fire." Carol sent an emergency message to Earth. She hoped the fleet would come. She hoped someone would save them. But she knew, deep in her heart, that help was too far away. They were alone. The hour passed. The colonists had managed to load perhaps 200 people onto emergency shuttles. The rest were still on the station, trapped by simple mathematics. There was not enough room. There was not enough time. The Zorani opened fire. Energy beams sliced through the station's thin hull. Explosions ripped through corridors and living quarters. People screamed as the vacuum of space pulled them through shattered walls. Families were torn apart. Children died in their parents' arms. Administrator Carol Webb stood in the central command room, watching her colony die around her. She had time for one final transmission before the ceiling collapsed on top of her. "Tell Earth what happened here," she said. "Tell them that we were murdered. Tell them that the Confederation showed us no mercy. Tell them to make the Zorani pay." Then static, then silence. The Defiance was 3 days away when it received the distress signal. Daniel pushed the engines past their safety limits. The ship groaned and shook, but it flew faster than it had ever flown before. When they arrived at Helix Colony, there was nothing left. Just debris and bodies floating in the cold darkness of space. Lieutenant Kevin Walsh worked the sensor console, scanning for survivors. He was a young officer with red hair and freckles, and right now his face was the color of ash. "I am detecting life signs," he said. "Not many. Maybe 50 people. They are in the emergency shelter on the far side of the asteroid belt. Get rescue teams out there now," Daniel ordered. For the next 12 hours, the crew of the Defiance pulled survivors from the wreckage. They found men and women with terrible burns. They found children who had watched their parents die. They found an old man who kept asking for his wife, not understanding that she was gone. Dr. Megan Torres worked without rest. She was the ship's chief medical officer, a woman in her 50s with gray hair and steady hands. She had treated battlefield injuries before, but this was different. These were not soldiers. These were civilians, miners and teachers and shopkeepers. Families who had simply wanted to build a new life among the stars. One of the last survivors they found was a young girl named Katie. She was 6 years old. She had blonde hair and blue eyes and a stuffed bear clutched tightly in her arms. She was not injured, but she had not spoken a word since the attack. Dr. Torres tried to examine her. The girl would not let go of her bear. "Her parents?" the doctor asked quietly. The rescue worker shook his head. Daniel found Megan in the medical bay late that night. She was sitting in a corner, tears running down her face. It was the first time he had ever seen her cry. 3,000 people, she said. 3,000 people, and we saved 47. 47 out of 3,000. That is not a rescue, Daniel. That is a funeral. Daniel sat down next to her. He did not know what to say. There were no words for something like this. "The girl," Megan continued. "Katie. She watched her mother die. She saw the ceiling fall on her. She was holding her mother's hand when it happened. A 6-year-old girl should never have to see something like that. No, Daniel agreed. She should not. They sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Megan looked at Daniel with red-rimmed eyes. "What are we going to do?" she asked. Daniel stood up. He looked through the window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, Admiral Vex Thar was celebrating. He had taught the primitives a lesson. He had shown them what happened when they forgot their place. "We are going to make them pay," Daniel said. He walked to the cargo bay. Nathan was already there, running diagnostic tests on the Mjolnir cannon. The weapon hummed quietly as power flowed through its ancient coils. "How soon can we fire?" Daniel asked. Nathan looked up from his console. "The cannon is ready. The tungsten rod is loaded. Targeting systems are calibrated. We can fire whenever you give the order. And the rest of the fleet? I have been in contact with the other 11 ships. They are on their way. They will be here within 48 hours. Daniel nodded slowly. 12 ships against the entire Zorani Empire. It was not an army. It was barely a patrol group. But it would have to be enough. "The Confederation thinks we are weak," he said. "They think we will accept this massacre and do nothing. They think we will bow our heads and beg for mercy." He placed his hand on the cold metal of the Mjolnir cannon. "They are wrong." Nathan hesitated. "Sir, you know what this means. If we attack the Zorani, there is no going back. It will be war. And we cannot win a war against the entire Confederation." "Maybe not," Daniel admitted. "But we can make them remember us. We can make them understand that humanity is not a species to be pushed around. We can show them that there is a price for murder." He turned to face his weapons officer directly. "Prepare the cannon," Daniel said. "Send a message to Admiral Vex Thar. Tell him that the United Earth Fleet is coming for him. Tell him that we know what he did at Helix Colony. Tell him that the primitives are about to teach him a lesson he will never forget." Nathan smiled grimly. "Yes, sir." As Daniel walked back to the bridge, he passed the medical bay. Through the window, he could see little Katie lying in a bed, still clutching her stuffed bear. She was staring at the ceiling with empty eyes. Daniel made her a silent promise. He would not bring her parents back. He could not undo what had been done. But he would make sure that the people responsible paid for their crimes. The galaxy was about to learn something important about humanity. They were not children. They were not primitives. They were the most dangerous species to ever crawl out of the mud and reach for the stars. And they did not forgive. They did not forget. They got even. The 12 ships of the United Earth Fleet gathered at the edge of the Helix system. They were small ships by galactic standards. The largest, the Defiance, was barely 500 meters long. The smallest were patrol craft that could fit inside a Zorani cargo bay. But they were here. They had come to fight. Daniel stood on the bridge of the Defiance and looked at his officers. Lisa was at the communications console. Kevin was at sensors. Nathan was down in the weapons bay, making final preparations on the Mjolnir cannon. Every station was manned. Every system was ready. "The Zorani patrol fleet has detected us," Kevin reported. 7 warships, including 1 dreadnought. "They are moving to intercept." Daniel nodded. This was expected. The Zorani would not ignore a human fleet in their space. They would come to crush the primitives once and for all. "Time to contact? 30 minutes at current speed." Daniel pressed the button to broadcast to all ships in the fleet. "This is Commander Harper. In 30 minutes, we will face the enemy that murdered our people at Helix Colony. They think we are weak. They think we will run away. They think our weapons are useless against their shields." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Today, we prove them wrong. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity can do. Stay in formation. Follow my lead. And remember, Helix." The channel closed. Daniel sat back in his command chair and watched the sensor display. 7 red dots were moving toward the 12 blue dots of his fleet. The dreadnought was twice as big as all the human ships combined. Lisa spoke up. "Sir, We are receiving a transmission from the Zorani flagship. It is Admiral Vex Thar. Lisa spoke up. Put him on screen. The Admiral's face appeared. His scales were a deep red color, almost black. His yellow eyes burned with anger. Commander Harper, the alien said. I warned you what would happen if you caused trouble. I told you that we would destroy every human in the galaxy. Now you come here with your pathetic little fleet, looking for revenge? Daniel kept his voice calm. You attacked our colony. You killed 3,000 innocent people. Men, women, and children. We are here to answer for those deaths. Vex Thar laughed. It was an ugly sound. Answer? You think you can answer for anything? Look at your ships, Commander. Look at mine. You are insects. You are dust. I am going to enjoy watching you burn. We will see, Daniel said, and cut the transmission. The minutes ticked by slowly. The Zorani fleet moved closer and closer. Daniel could see the details of the dreadnought now on his screen. The ship was called the Eternal Conquest. And it was a monster of metal and weapons. 2 kilometers long, hundreds of gun ports, shields that could survive a nuclear explosion. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Range to target, 20,000 kilometers, Kevin announced. They are powering up their weapons. Daniel touched the intercom. Nathan, are you ready? Nathan's voice came back immediately. Ready and waiting, Commander. The Mjolnir cannon is at full power. Targeting is locked on the dreadnought's center mass. Just give the word. Hold your fire until my signal. Yes, sir. The Zorani fleet spread out into attack formation. Their weapons began to glow with deadly energy. On the communications channel, Vex Thar's voice spoke one final time. Last chance, human. Surrender now, and I might let a few of your people live as slaves. Refuse, and you all die. Daniel did not answer. Instead, he gave a simple order. All ships, evasive pattern Delta. Nathan, fire the cannon. On the weapons deck of the Defiance, Nathan pressed a button. The Mjolnir cannon had been silent for 500 years. It had been built in an age of war and violence, designed to kill on a scale that frightened even its creators. Then it had been locked away, hidden, forgotten. Now it spoke again. The ship shuddered as the electromagnetic coils fired. There was no flash of light, no beam of energy, just a massive pulse of electromagnetic force that pushed a 400-ton tungsten rod out of the barrel at 20% of the speed of light. The rod crossed the distance to the Eternal Conquest in less than half a second. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The dreadnought hung in space, its shields glowing confidently. Admiral Vex Thar had time to wonder why his sensors were screaming impossible numbers at him. Then the tungsten rod hit. It did not stop at the shields. The shields were designed to dissipate energy, to spread out the force of an attack across their entire surface. But the rod was not energy. It was mass. 400 tons of solid metal, moving at 60,000 kilometers per second. The shields did not dissipate it. They could not. The rod passed through them like they were not there. It struck the center of the dreadnought and kept going. The kinetic energy released was beyond imagination. The rod converted from solid metal to plasma in milliseconds, transferring its momentum to everything around it. The Eternal Conquest did not explode. It was unmade. The front half of the ship simply vanished, turned to atoms by the force of the impact. The back half was thrown backward, crumpling like paper. In less than a second, a 2-kilometer warship was reduced to a cloud of glowing debris. Silence filled the bridge of the Defiance. Kevin stared at his sensor display, with his mouth hanging open. Lisa had tears running down her face. Even Daniel, who had believed in the cannon, was shocked by what he had just seen. The other Zorani ships had frozen in space. Their weapons stopped charging. Their shields flickered uncertainly. They had just watched their flagship, the pride of their fleet, be erased from existence by a single shot. Daniel found his voice. Open a channel to the remaining ships. Lisa pressed the button with shaking hands. Channel open. This is Commander Harper, of the United Earth Fleet. Admiral Vex Thar is dead. The Eternal Conquest is destroyed. We have 11 more shots loaded and ready. You can run, or you can join your admiral. The choice is yours. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the Zorani warships began to turn away. They did not use their faster-than-light drives. They did not even try to fight. They simply ran, pushing their engines as hard as they could to get away from the human ships. Within minutes, they were gone. Daniel let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding in his chest. They had done it. They had actually done it. "Sir," Kevin said quietly, "I am reading 0 life signs from the debris field. The Eternal Conquest had a crew of 6,000. They are all dead." Daniel closed his eyes. 6,000 Zorani. Soldiers, technicians, officers. They had families too. They had lives beyond their uniforms. And now they were all gone. Killed in less time than it took to blink. This was what humanity had been hiding. This was the violence that slept in their souls. The ability to kill on a massive scale. Quickly and efficiently, without hesitation. It was terrifying. And it was necessary. "Begin recording," Daniel said. "I want a full report of what happened here. Send it to every human colony. Send it to Earth. Send it to the Confederation Council. The galaxy needs to know what we can do." Lisa nodded and began working at her console. Nathan came up from the weapons bay. His face was pale but determined. "The cannon is cooling down. We can fire again in about 2 hours." "Good," Daniel said. "Keep it ready. I do not think we are done yet." He walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the surviving Zorani were spreading the word. Somewhere out there, the Confederation was learning that the primitives were not so primitive after all. The rules of the galaxy had just changed, and humanity was only getting started. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Within hours, every space station and colony knew what had happened. Within days, the story reached even the most distant worlds. A primitive species had done the impossible. They had destroyed a Confederation dreadnought with a single shot. The Galactic Confederation went into chaos. Emergency meetings were called on 100 different worlds. Military leaders demanded action. Politicians screamed for blood. Some wanted to send every warship in the galaxy to crush humanity once and for all. Others warned that this would only lead to more deaths, more destruction, more impossible weapons. High Chancellor Zorketh sat in his chamber and read the reports with growing horror. The Eternal Conquest had been one of the most powerful ships in the fleet. Its shields had been the best that Zorani science could create, and the humans had cut through those shields like they were nothing. What else did they have hidden away? What other ancient weapons were waiting to be used? The Chancellor called for Ambassador Laura Chen. Laura was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had been humanity's representative to the Confederation for 3 years. She had spent most of that time being ignored and insulted. Now, suddenly, everyone wanted to talk to her. She walked into the council chamber with her head held high. Around her, representatives of every major species in the galaxy watched in silence. Their scales and feathers and crystal surfaces all turned toward her, waiting. "You wanted to see me, Chancellor?" Laura said. Zorketh's scales were pale gray with worry. He looked old, older than she had ever seen him. "Ambassador Chen, your people have committed an act of war. They have destroyed a Confederation warship. They have killed 6,000 Zorani soldiers. Your admiral killed 3,000 human civilians first," Laura replied, "including 400 children. Our warship destroyed a military target in response. That is not an act of war. That is self-defense." A Zorani council member stood up. His scales were dark red with anger. "You dare to compare the death of primitives to the death of Zorani warriors? Your people are nothing. They are animals." Laura turned to face him directly. "Those animals just killed your admiral with a weapon you said was useless. Maybe you should rethink your definition of nothing." We are. I wing saluted. 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 The chamber erupted into shouting. Aliens of every species argued with each other, pointed fingers, made threats. For several minutes, it seemed like the council would tear itself apart. Finally, High Chancellor Zorketh raised his hand for silence. His voice was tired but firm. Enough, he said. This arguing accomplishes nothing. The question before us is simple. What do we do about humanity? Destroy them, someone said. Send the fleet. End this before they become a real threat. And how many ships are you willing to lose? Another voice asked. They have 11 more shots loaded, they said. That means 11 more dreadnoughts destroyed. Maybe more. Are you volunteering your world's ships? The silence that followed was answer enough. Laura stepped forward. Chancellor, I have a proposal. All eyes turned to her. Humanity does not want war, she said. We never wanted war. We came to the stars looking for knowledge and friendship. We wanted to learn from older civilizations. We wanted to share what we knew. But you treated us like insects. You laughed at us. You killed our people. She paused, letting her words sink in. Our weapon is old. It was designed 500 years ago, when we still fought wars against each other. We had hoped never to use it. We sealed it away because we were afraid of what it meant about our nature. But you gave us no choice. High Chancellor Zorketh leaned forward. What do you propose, Ambassador? Peace, Laura said simply. Real peace. Not the kind where you watch us like criminals and laugh at our technology. The kind where we are treated as equals. The kind where our colonies are protected, not destroyed. The kind where our people can live without fear. And if we refuse? Laura met the Chancellor's clouded eyes without flinching. Then we will defend ourselves. We will dig deeper into our history. We will find more weapons. Older weapons. Weapons that make the Mjolnir cannon look like a toy. Humanity has been fighting for survival since before your species learned to make fire. We are very, very good at it. She let that hang in the air for a moment. But we would rather not, she continued. We would rather build than destroy. We would rather heal than hurt. We would rather be your friends than your enemies. The choice is yours. The council debated for 7 hours. In the end, they voted for peace. Not because they trusted humanity, not because they liked them, but because they were afraid of what would happen if they chose war. On the Defiance, Daniel watched the news broadcasts with mixed feelings. They had won. Humanity was safe, at least for now. The Confederation had agreed to treat them as equals. No more patrols watching their every move. No more colonies being destroyed without warning. But at what cost? He thought about the 6,000 Zorani who had died on the Eternal Conquest. They were the enemy, yes. But they were also people with families and dreams and fears. He had killed them all in less than a second. Lisa found him in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. She sat down beside him without speaking. I thought I would feel better, Daniel said after a while. I thought destroying that ship would bring me peace. But it does not. It just feels heavy, Lisa nodded slowly. That is because you are a good person. A monster would celebrate what we did. A hero would feel proud. But you just feel the weight of all those deaths. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I do not know, Lisa admitted. Maybe both. Maybe that weight is what keeps us from becoming monsters ourselves. They sat in silence, watching the stars drift by. In the medical bay, little Katie was finally starting to talk again. Dr. Torres sat beside her bed, listening as the girl described her favorite foods and her favorite games and her plans for when she grew up. She did not talk about her parents. Not yet. That pain was too fresh, too raw. But Megan knew it would come eventually, and she would be there when it did. Weeks turned into months. Humanity expanded through the galaxy, building new colonies and new ships. Other species began to approach them, curious about the primitives who had humbled the mighty Zorani. Some came looking for trade. Some came looking for alliance. A few came looking for protection. The Mjolnir cannon stayed in Cargo Bay 7. Daniel ordered it sealed away again, hoping it would never be used. But he also ordered Nathan to train a new generation of gunners, just in case. Because the galaxy was a dangerous place, and humanity had learned a hard truth among the stars: peace was not given. It was earned. And sometimes, the only way to earn it was to show your enemies exactly what would happen if they chose war. 1 year after the Battle of Helix, Daniel received a message from Earth. He was being promoted to admiral. He was being put in charge of the entire human fleet. He did not want the job. He did not want the responsibility. But he accepted it anyway, because someone had to do it, and he was the one who understood what was at stake. In his acceptance speech, broadcast to every human colony in the galaxy, he said something that would be remembered for generations. We came to the stars as explorers. We became warriors because we had no choice. But we will never let ourselves become conquerors. We will defend the weak. We will protect the innocent. We will stand against anyone who uses their power to harm those who cannot fight back. He paused, his eyes distant. And if anyone ever doubts our resolve, if anyone ever thinks we are soft, or weak, or afraid, remind them of what happened at Helix. Remind them of the eternal conquest. Remind them that humanity keeps its promises. His voice dropped to a whisper. All of them, the stars waited, cold and endless. Humanity looked up at them with new eyes. They were not children anymore. They were not primitives, playing with rocks. They were something else now. Something stronger. Something harder. Something that the galaxy would have to reckon with for a very long time. And somewhere in Cargo Bay 7, the Mjolnir cannon slept. Waiting. Ready. Just in case anyone needed another reminder.